As a hyphenated American, I am so glad that we are finally having a discussion about our immigrant parents and their country as a whole having such a hatred for Black people in America. And what has me in confusion is that they have more hatred for the Black people in America than the colonizers who are back in their country, pushing them out of their country so that they have to come to America to make a whole new life. What's even worse is that they have this hatred for Black people in America before they even step foot on America's soil.
You know what? And I will say this, shout out to her in this video. You know, and a lot of this we realized is something that has been taught to them. You know, a lot of the way immigrants and other people think about Black Americans is something that has been taught. They've been indoctrinated to believe that we are the worst of the worst. This is something that's just been ingrained in them, that's been taught to them. Even though they come to our country, they have a disdain for Black Americans. They're already told, stay away from the Black people. We've had numerous amounts of individuals who immigrated to this country have come out and exposed how a lot of these individuals really feel about us. And we've seen it display itself more than once on these social media apps where these people have really shown their true colors and how they really feel about Black Americans. And so now I just think that they've been exposed, and it's a conversation that we're seeing happening everywhere. And now the genie is out of the bottle. Everybody understands. As Black Americans, we understand how everybody feels about us. Even people who look like us don't even like us. And so I think it's just exposed something that people have already kind of felt, but now you don't just have to feel it, you know for sure it exists, you know. And it's like, hey, we already have a lot of people who already hate Black people, but on top of that, you have immigrants, people who are not from this country, who come here, who don't really like us and have this hatred for us. It's just ridiculous. It's insane. You know what I'm saying? And it's just interesting to see that, to say the least. It's interesting to see. And it's an interesting take on things, why so many people have this disdain and hatred for Black Americans. But a lot of them, you know, talk about culture and how Black people don't have any culture. But the very culture that they say we don't have is a culture that they actually adopt, which is mind-blowing to me. Let's continue.
In my opinion, I blame the boomers. The boomer immigrants are just as bad as the American boomers, because truth be told, they are the ones that started the backlash against Black people in America. And they taught and spread that same hatred to their kids and to their families and friends back in their country. Not only that, a lot of them only have friends that are from their country. So they didn't interact with Black people in America. Now look at them. A lot of them are being deported back to the country that they didn't even bother to fix because they had so much hatred for Black people.
You know, and she make a very good point, you know, and I think a lot of this started to be exposed, you know, when all these deportations, I said it before, these deportations, you know, President Trump cracking down on illegal immigrants, all of this kind of opened a can of worms. It kind of opened it up to exposing the nature of a lot of these people when they start trying to blame Black people on not helping them, and as if we can't do anything. We have nothing to do with your immigration status or whatever. We have nothing to do with that. A lot of people have come into this country illegally, some legally, and you know, I'm all for people coming here, like I said before, legally. There's nothing wrong with you legally migrating to this country and start and getting a better life for your family. I'm all for that. But when you come into the country illegally and then you try to claim all these rights and then have this snooty attitude about people who are from this country, that can become a problem. And once again, I think, you know, this kind of opened a can of worms, and it kind of exposed people for their true nature and how they think and how they feel. But they come over and migrate into this country, but then you have a problem with the citizens of this country that happen to be Black, which is insane to me. And then you think that you have some sort of say, or you can demand certain things when a lot of people come here, and I think they forget that they're not, you know, the ones who are illegal. I think they forget that they're illegal. They've had the privilege of being here for so long and not having to do anything to become legal citizens, just coasting here, doing whatever. I think they forget, because I don't think they ever thought that it will come to this point to where now they're being rounded up and they're being taken back to their countries. You just would think that people who are coming from bad situations in their country where, their country doesn't even want them there and forcing them out, that if you are embraced into another culture or country of people, that you should have the most respect and love for those people. It shouldn't be a racist situation where you're coming in looking at people, looking down on folks that actually embraced you and had no issues with you. Now, I hear a lot of different people talk about this issue, and there are some Black Americans who talk about having an issue with Africans. I just didn't grow up with that. I didn't see that. But I'm not going to take away the fact that some others have. And, the term African booty scratcher always comes up. I have never heard that growing up. I've never heard that in my community. And maybe once again, it's because I grew up in a predominantly Black community. We didn't have a lot of immigrants in our community or in our schools. And so maybe that's why it wasn't a thing. But I'm pretty sure others, who spoke about this, they've experienced that and they've used that term, and that's unfortunate. But once again, that's something that people have talked about in the past. But does that correlate to them being, taught to hate Black Americans, taught to not associate with Black Americans? It's a difference between individuals, teasing people or having certain terms. Everybody has some type of slang or term that's been used against them. But would you really equate that to being taught hatred, being taught in the home to hate a group of people who have done nothing to you? And that's, the same way I feel about racism. A lot of people who are racist, that's something that they were taught. You were taught that, to hate Black people or to hate these people because of whatever reason. And a majority of people who hate Black people, there's no real reason for you to hate them. They have not done anything to you personally. In fact, a lot of people who are racist towards Black people have never even encountered a negative situation with a Black person. If anything, they have had people of their own race do things to them that they've never experienced from a Black person. And I'm not saying this is every situation, but a lot of it is. Crime is based on proximity. So if you are living in a predominantly white society or community, you usually get crime that's associated within that race. So if you're robbed in your white community, it's usually from another white person. The same way with Black on Black crime. If you're in a predominantly Black community, then you're more than likely going to be robbed from a person that looks like you, because it's based on proximity. Typically, people don't go out of their way, clean out of their communities into a whole nother community and start terrorizing that community. Now, if we really want to dig deeper, that it was definitely a thing at the height of racism, where it was white people who actually did that, who actually left their communities to go harass and hang and beat and destroy Black communities. That was a thing for them. That wasn't necessarily something that Black people did. So we could associate that with racism amongst white people who actually left their communities, came into other communities and started doing things, committing crimes and deleting people and doing things of that nature, just based on the hatred of Black folks. But when it comes to Black people, there's no history of Black people just coming out of their communities, going way across town to go and do something to white people, because we know that would not work out in your favor. They had the guns. You would end up, it wouldn't look good for you. But all of a sudden now, fast forward, it's Black on Black crime, but they don't talk about the white on white crime and so on and so forth. But what I'm saying is, once again, hatred is something that is taught. It doesn't mean that somebody had to do, that there was a history of somebody doing something to you. It was taught. And it's something that's indoctrinated into people to believe that you should have a reason to hate a group of people for whatever reason, just because of what you think and what you feel, they've done, when it's really nothing that they've done to you, but it's just based off of what you feel and what you think, based off of what society has made you believe, based off what you may have seen on social media or on TV, and you run with that without ever having the experience with the very people that you've built this hatred up for. So, it's just interesting to see. Yeah, it's interesting to see that a lot of these people now, they're being, deported out of this country to go deal with their country and their country's issues. And they don't like it. And then somehow, in some way, to some degree, people were trying to make it seem as if somehow it's Black Americans' fault or it's issues because we are not standing up for them and really are doing much to kind to, help the situation. In what way, I don't know, but there was a bit of that going around that Black Americans were not doing enough to stand up for these people because somehow it's going to be us being deported. And it goes back to this that blew my mind, that they actually thought that Black Americans were illegal or something like that, were immigrants, was just, mind-boggling to me, to say the least. But listen, I want to hear y'all thoughts on this topic. What do you think about African immigrants having an issue with Black Americans? Do you think that it's a bigger problem than what we already see? I want to know your thoughts. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Comment, like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell to be notified when I upload new content. Chime in. I want to hear your thoughts on this, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.